On our top story, let's bring in Sami Al-Arian here in the studio. He is the director of the Center for Islam and Global Affairs at the Istanbul Zaim University. Sami, good to have you back. All right, so I don't know if you're listening to Melinda, who was actually leading our coverage from Oslo. She was essentially saying that they're not expecting anything official or big from the Norwegian government today. I feel that this development makes what we heard from Pedro Sanchez, the words specifically coming out of Pedro Sanchez's mouth, all that more important. He said that we want a viable Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. I want to get your thoughts on that and what are the practical implications?
Well, this is a very significant development coming from a major European country. But I think all three countries have coordinated their positions. So whether Norway has an actual official proclamation or not, it has already been on record that it will recognize the Palestinian state, and having Spain, which is the largest of all three countries, coming with this declaration makes all the what is needed to be known. Now, the significance of this, of course, is that no country, particularly European, has stated what kind of borders it is recognizing. They recognized in general the Palestinian state. For Spain to come today and says it recognizes the 1967 borders is extremely important because it strengthens the Palestinian position about Jerusalem and about the borders, about the need to dismantle settlements and so on and so forth. Let's keep in mind that when the 1994 agreement, which came after the Oslo 1993 agreement, came into place, the number of countries that recognized Israel at the time were less than the number of countries that recognize Palestine today. With the three countries, that makes them about 145 countries, which is about 75% of the members. Today, the total number of countries that recognize Israel is 165, so it's pretty close. And bearing in mind that most of the countries that recognized Israel back since 1994 were on the condition that there will be a Palestinian state. So it would not be unheard of if Israel insists on its position not to have a Palestinian state, that many of these countries would actually withdraw their recognition of Israel.
There is one part that I may have misunderstood, and help me understand this correctly. Did Pedro Sanchez, I think he referred to a corridor between the West Bank and Gaza, or am I completely off target here?
No, I didn't hear him saying that, but right. It is given that if there is any kind of a Palestinian state, it must be viable, and part of that viability of have some kind of a corridor between the two entities.
But that's nowhere within the 67 borders, though.
It is not.
Okay, so that's something new that's being put forth. Up until now, the whole sort of general approach has been, all right, let's work on the peace process, and then the recognition will come as a result of that. Right. What we're seeing now with these European countries sort of jumping on the bandwagon and coming out with the official recognition is, this is turning it completely upside down.
Well, let's again go back in history. In history, this whole process started after the PLO recognized a sort of a two-state solution back in '74. They were admitted as an observer status. Then a process started in 1975 in order to reach, under the UN auspices, some kind of a settlement. That failed miserably. That came after the 1973. Then Egypt had its own peace treaty with Israel, which strengthened Israel's hand. Doesn't have to give up anything since the biggest country has already signed a peace treaty with them. Then came, of course, after that, the Oslo Accords and the recognition of the Palestinians of Israel. And then everything stalled because Israel had no intention whatsoever to give up its sovereignty over the occupied territories. All what it wanted to do is to give some kind of limited autonomy for the Palestinians. That's been even the case under Netanyahu, and now the Europeans and other countries recognize that if they do not bring this process under an international system, because the US has always been backing Israel, nothing's going to come out of it.
You said it. I mean, the buck stops with the United States, essentially, though.
Well, I mean, to a sense that the United States has been the broker of this process throughout Oslo and before, and also to the effect that it has a veto power. But at the end of the day, if the world does not step in and make its voices heard, we're just going to have more of October 7th, we're going to have more of genocidal Israel, we're going to have more of ethnic cleansing. And I don't think the world is ready, particularly after we saw millions of people coming out in the streets and protesting what's taking place today in Gaza and Rafah.
Do you think that we're inching closer in terms of the building momentum for there to become a tipping point for the majority of these 50 some odd countries that are still not on board, for them to start reevaluating the situation and maybe switching sides?
Well, let's review who these 50 countries are. These 50 countries, 12 of them are island nations. Most of them are, few thousands in each one. They will just do whatever the US wants them to do. So if we take this apart, that leaves about 38 nations. Out of the 38 nations, 25 are in Europe. 3 of them have recognized Palestine today, so that leaves about 22. Many of them are small nations. Liechtenstein, Estonia, Latvia. They don't really matter in terms of international politics, and they have a lot of security cooperation with the United States. So that leaves just the major countries in Europe, mainly France and Germany. Germany is always going to be, because of its guilt, feeling of guilt about the Nazi Holocaust, it's never going to come and support Palestine. So that the major country is going to be Britain and France. Yes. France, I think, is already on record supporting a Palestinian state. It's just waiting for the right timing. The United Kingdom is just following the United States, whatever it does, but it's also been abstaining rather than vetoing. So that leaves about, maybe about 4 or 5 countries which could actually make a difference. Netherlands, Belgium, they're still small countries, but it will also be a symbolic gesture. The remaining countries are just countries which have security ties with the United States as well as commercial ties. South Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, these kind of countries. I don't expect any of them to come actually and vote or at least recognize Palestine, but I think deep down they really want to do the right thing, which is to recognize Palestine, even if they don't do it officially.
With Norway, Spain, and Ireland coming out, and the few countries that you mentioned being sort of on the fence, do you feel that this has the potential to perhaps vitalize, act as a catalyst, an impetus for the revival of a left-leaning, of the left in Israeli politics?
That's a very good point, because I think I'm switching now to the left in Europe rather than because there is no left in Israel. So this is the left of Europe. Israel has to be dragged into this process. It will never come voluntarily. But going into Europe again, out of the 27 European Union nations, 6 had already recognized Palestine before they actually joined, like Cyprus, the Czech Republic, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and so on and so forth. One of them came actually before Norway and Ireland and Spain back in 2014, which is Sweden. So that brings them to 10 out of 27. So if we can get a majority within the European Union, particularly after Josep Borrell, who is the foreign commissioner, is already in favor of this, I think that would tip the scale. I mean, if we could have over half, I think that would bring many changes, particularly on the issue of commercial ties and other kind of ties between the European Union and Israel. That is going to put tremendous pressure on the Israeli government to move in this direction.
Sami Al-Arian, thank you very much for joining us here in our special coverage. Do appreciate it.